Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready?
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. So they passed their fucking resolution there last night at the last fucking minute. Christ, you know, and but it's only good for a few weeks, and then we'll be right back into it again when Trump's after he's been sworn in there, and so. There's this video that I recorded that it was last night they put it up on YouTube, and I want to play that because it's an interview with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who basically kind of really brought up some pretty good points in there, and I thought maybe other people should see if they haven't seen it. So I'm gonna play that video, and then because it's like almost 25 minutes long, I'm gonna play the video, and then I'm just gonna go to a commercial break, and then when we come back after that, then we'll discuss it. So let's just do the video, and then we'll go to a commercial break right after.
Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So I'm going to start off with let's talk about what's going on, obviously, right now. At any moment, you could be called to the floor for a vote. And there's some indication of what it may be. They're now talking about splitting it up into 3 different bills. But just give us your sense of what's going on here, because it feels like 5 days ago, nobody predicted there'd be an issue with this.
We were totally fine. Democrats and Republicans had come to a compromise, CR, just government funding bill. And it's actually funny. It kind of came down to literally maybe like a 3-hour window where the schedule in the House, there was 2 vote series. We're supposed to vote at 1:30 and then again vote at 4:30. And so they were going to put this government spending bill that everyone had agreed to on. There's some talk about putting it through at 1:30. Mike Johnson says, you know what, let's just do it at 4. And in that 3-hour window, Elon Musk tweeted. And it died. And then you have Trump threatening, and basically Trump threatened to primary any Republican that voted for a clean CR. And then Elon tweeted that he was threatening to primary anyone that voted for the compromise CR. And Republicans are in this moment where they don't know who their daddy is right now. And so they are just running around like chickens with their head cut off. And so we're literally in this holding pattern because of this. And it's like this recursive loop that is just shut down the government literally out of nowhere because of a tweet. It's actually insane. It's actually insane.
I was a product of divorce, so I can understand what happens when mommy and daddy fight, and you don't know which side to land on. But putting that aside for a moment, one question I have that does not feel like it's going to be addressed whatsoever is the $20 billion for the IRS. Mm-hmm. This was in the last budget. It was a clawback by the Republicans. But if it's a continuing resolution, it could happen again, sort of as just sort of like, I guess, inertia. What is anybody talking about that at all?
Well, I think that this is the core problem that they're in right now, which is that, of course, they need Democratic votes to pass this thing. This conference cannot keep themselves together. And so they keep trying to, but they can't. They're too much at war with themselves. And so it is something that is a priority for us. And it's not something that I think has been left aside or forgotten. This is going to be a big battle, though. And it's not going to be the last time we see this come up.
Right.
Because the Trump tax cuts are expiring next year. And this is actually what this fight is actually all about. This is why Elon is involved in this right now, because he's not tweeting this out of nowhere. He's not coming at this out of nowhere. They are trying to lift the debt limit now because reauthorizing the Trump tax cuts next year are going to explode our federal debt. It's going to explode our deficit again. And they don't want to lift the debt limit then to do that. They want to lift it now. That's why
because that'll draw too much attention to what their tax cuts are doing. And this way, if they split it up, it's less of a story.
And that's why Elon's getting involved. His net worth has, I believe it's almost doubled since the election. Or it's like, this is what was kind of being discussed a little bit among Democratic talkers. Like they're talking about changes to Elon's net worth since the election. He is trying to further explode his net worth. And he is trying to leverage everything from income from federal contracts to, reducing his own personal expenditures and reducing his taxes. And this is something that we are, this is what this is about for him. Trump has a different set of priorities for himself. He's trying to, line his own pockets and figure out his own political preservation in this moment. And sometimes those things are aligned and sometimes they're not. And I think right now we're in one of those friction points.
It's sort of the definition of an oligarchy where even though these guys aren't these, I mean, even though Trump's not even in office yet, his like billionaire mob daddy,
enforcer, basically,
is like controlling whether the government will stay open or not. But let's leave this for a moment because, this is an ongoing story. We're going to find out maybe how this is resolved, at least for the next 3 weeks or 2 months. We'll find that out in a moment. But I want to turn to what's been going on this week in terms of your attempt to chair the government oversight committee. And my daughter had a question that sort of dovetails into this. So I told her I would ask this question. She wants to know, and I think sort of these two questions sort of address that whole dynamic. One is if you feel abandoned by the Democratic Party, and how so, if you do. But also, she wants to know, how do you grapple with having to appeal to multiple different ideological groups within the Democratic Party and your constituency?
Yeah, well, two really good questions. The first one is that I don't really feel abandoned by the Democratic Party because my primary relationship that I care about the most is mass movements and mass movement politics. And part of my job and my role exists forever in this tension point between mass movements and everyday people and the establishment of the Democratic Party. And so that is always as long as I exist as a person, I am going to be in this waypoint between these these two forces. And what I'm always trying to do is open the windows of possibility for people in the Democratic Party. And so I don't feel abandoned because my job is not to try to gain personal acceptance. My job is to try to build power for the working class. And so I feel like you have to know when to select your battles and when to force the question. And I ran to win. I always run to win. I don't pick fights that I think are losing from the jump, even if they are long shots. But I also felt like this was a win-win situation. And I felt like it was win-win because you win it in a literal sense. We're able to wield this seat. And I think I genuinely ran because I thought it was what was best for the party. And I think it was what was best for the country. And I think it was what was best for people. And that's why I did it. But I also think that it is clarifying. And sometimes when you force this question, it allows us to take measurements about where we are at. And not in a binary perspective, not just in a binary perspective either. It's not just that we won or that we lost. But even in losing, I don't think anybody in the party thought that it would be this close at the start. This is a race among, by definition, Democratic insiders, only among other members of Congress. And this is typically an environment where people like us get crushed. And the fact that it was this close, the fact that some of the most, established and powerful elements of the party had to mobilize to make, to make this result, happen, that we, people were hot on their heels, I think is a very good sign for us. And so that's the first question, which leads to the second question, right, is that in order for us to win, we need to win along several dimensions. And we need to know how to bring people together and cleave people together in kind of different dimensions in addition to an ideological one. If it's forever just progressives versus the establishment, and that's the only frame, then we are outnumbered. But if we can take that, preserve it, we're not abandoning it, but you add generational dimensions, you add class dimensions, you add some of these other things. This is an exercise in coalition building while preserving the integrity of our positions. And I think this was one of our first big swings at it. And I think as far as that goes, there was a lot of really interesting successes in that. This was not.
So that you mean if we were to look at the votes that you got maybe on the steering committee, and if we were to look at the votes that you got on the floor, we would see you could have obviously progressives voted for you, but then maybe there are younger people who have a different idea of what partisanship looks like. I think that is a big part of the generational changes. And there may be also some people who run to the progressive positions on economics, but maybe not on immigration, or maybe not on, Pickett, essentially. Because frankly, there are votes that I know that my daughter and I have talked about, and that we've talked about here, that you've taken that we're not excited about, to say the least, the anti-Semitism one in the most recent. But this is part, or you tell me, is this part of like the idea of there are certain battles where you think are maybe less consequential in the long term that you will sacrifice to build these coalitions for the long term?
I think that we are presently in a moment where we have to be really ruthless about what battles we pick. And we cannot pick all of them. And I think we have to be realistic about the political moment that we are in. There are moments where we have the juice to be bullish. And then there are moments where we need to like really strengthen foundationally and preserve. You know, this was a tough year for us. And it's not just about big money. It's about like organizationally on the left, we are in a challenging time. Just everything that has gone on over the last year, there's a genocide that is happening. And this is rightfully been a focus of so much organizing. And it's also caused a lot of not just internal, I think, questioning, assessment, how we do things on the left, but it's also been a moment where we've had tons of dark money, not just, yes, APAC, also crypto, also Wall Street, all these folks that are constantly waiting to pick us off. And so, you know, I think that for this purpose, when we make sure that we fight like hell on the material things, like I vote consistently on withholding weapons, withholding funding for offensive weapons. When it comes to some of like the finer, second and third degree connections on condemning anti-Semitism, if IHRA came explicitly to the floor, I would not vote to ratify it. But I think that we need to be very strategic. We cannot swing at every single pitch because we have to build. And so I do think, for example, internally, one of my big cases about in gaining support, and what is interesting is that the support that we got in this, it was not just like the Progressive Caucus plus the Hispanic Caucus, which were the two caucuses that endorsed me in this fight. We had swing district Democrats that supported me in this. We had New Dems, which is a
Pat Ryan, I think, was one of the most successful of the swing, sort of the purple districts, as it were. And he, I think, spoke
on your behalf, right?
Yes, yeah. And he outran Kamala Harris by the largest margin of any House Democrat. And so one of the things the case that I was making to the caucus is that I can message on an economically populist message. And that is my intention. Of course, we are going to fight on civil rights. We're going to fight on human dignity. We're not going to let Democrats abandon our trans community. We're not going to allow Democrats to try to run skittish on civil and human rights issues. But the selling point, the most alluring point to bring the party together and to bring them over, we have to make a case of persuasion, which is that there is no other place where we are seeing promise to win back the working class, to win back Latinos, to win back young people than right here. And the message that we can send as a party that has been really kind of cemented in this election by Trump, that Democrats are the party of the elite, which bore out in an electorate in terms of what got hemorrhaged. That the way that we counter that is a populist economic message, which in a progressive frame has the benefit of a multiracial democracy, and that is attenuated with that.
Right. And part of why, I was excited about the prospect of you winning that position to be a top Democrat on oversight was because of the fact that you could communicate that kind of thing with a really large megaphone. And I think part of maybe I saw what you did with your followers after the election, some of the voters who voted for you and Trump. Mm-hmm. And, Trump's style of tweeting or truthing or whatever, he's lying all the time, but it at least simulates a level of responsiveness to the public. Yes. So my question is just do you think that the Democrats' message on Trump's threat to democracy was undercut by the fact that An overwhelming number of Americans thought that Biden was too old to run for a second term, and yet there was no real primary process anyway. So, like, I guess in other words, do you think that the Democrats need to build back more trust and legitimacy with their base, democratic legitimacy, by showing more responsiveness?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big part of what our case was as well. You know, I think it's interesting because a lot of people kind of talk about the gerontocracy of the Democratic Party and the way that a lot of these decisions are decided by seniority. And all of those things are true. But what is also attenuated with that is the fact that it is really hard for a lot of, I think, Democrats to wrap their head around the current media environment that we are in. And there's still like this really big attachment to the idea that CNN, MSNBC, the op-ed, pages of the New York Times are where swing voters are and where everyday people are. And as we saw from the election, people who, if you ascribe to that kind of a media diet, you are overwhelmingly supporting Democrats. But there has for a very long, and this was actually part of what part of what I was trying to offer the party is also part of what I think had cut against me in this race, which is that there's this idea that having this, not among all Democrats, but I think among more of the old guard, that having that kind of resonance and responsiveness is gauche and lowbrow and unsophisticated. And it's attention seeking. Like the fact that a person has attention means that they are attention seeking, as opposed to the fact that they are talking to people. And so I feel okay because at the end of the day, I'm going to keep doing that. I am going to continue to do that. I wanted to do it at the behest of not just like the party for the sake of the party, but because we are on the precipice of a fascist administration coming in.
Right. And your level of partisanship would have been a benefit, right? I mean, it's also about acting partisan with the Republicans and not exceptionalizing MAGA and Trump and saying Trump is the Republicans and the Republicans are Trump.
Right. And so, but I don't think that window has necessarily passed.
Well, time's sort of on your side on some level in this dynamic, right? I mean, we're seeing that develop. I don't know why it develops more quickly on the Republican side, and maybe that's just because they have a
seniority system.
They don't have a seniority system, and they don't even. But even in the context of their media. Like they developed, talk radio first. They and they've put a lot more money into the online stuff, and there's an investment there. And they don't seem as reluctant to do that. And just lastly, because I know you got to go, but part of this dynamic of the way that young people are getting their media now, it seems to me, is that what we've seen with Gaza and what's happening with Israel is akin in my mind to what happened with the Vietnam War when we saw for the first time reporters were actually involved in the war. And for people who had more skin in the game, insofar as like I could get drafted or my kids could get drafted, that really changed the politics in a way that I don't think the upper echelon or the old guard, as it were, of whatever was happening at that time in this country understood. And I feel like that same dynamic is happening now. If you're under the age of 40, what's gone on in Israel is in Palestine and Gaza in particular, obviously, and the West Bank for that matter, is very different from your perception if you're over the age of 40 because of where you get your media.
I have said this directly to Democratic leadership. I've communicated this to the White House that this is our Vietnam. This is our, not just like in terms of the party, but this is just our country's Vietnam. And what I think a lot of people do not yet understand is they think this is that some of these hemorrhages are maybe ideological. They think maybe it is like an ethnic thing. I don't think there is appreciation yet about how generationally radicalizing this moment is, and how shocked people are at how far just like the general inertia is willing to go, as if we're not seeing what's happening right before our very eyes. I mean, we are now at the point where, you know, in where I exist, me calling this a genocide, going to the House floor, delivering a speech saying that the administration is aiding and abetting this is so far beyond the fringe, so far beyond the pale. This is also part of what this dynamic was in this vote too. It came up like, let's just to call a spade, that was also an element in this fight. But I think that it is important that we lay these markers down again generationally, because people see what is happening, and we need to have some sort of legitimacy if we seek to reinstate an order around human rights and actual care for democracy. And, you know, that is the benefit of being, of trying to be consistent. And so when I see these losses, they're not devastating to me, because I think they are important waypoints for us to see. It's not just a loss. Like, again, in the context of the Democratic caucus, in the context of a 3-term member of Congress running to become a ranking member of a committee against, you know, someone that has decades of experience here, to gain that waterline of 84 Democrats in an internal fight is actually, it is something that people were taken aback by. And we will see, what do we do with that? I don't know. But it is a chip that we have. And we'll have to see other people we can elevate and support, and see how all of these things interact. But at the end of the day, it's something that I think was a net gain for all of us to be able to engage in.
Yeah, I suspect that 130 on the other side or so were surprised, and they're, I don't know if put on notice is the right way of putting it, but they're aware that maybe there's something they might be missing. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
And good luck with whatever you end up having to vote
on
today. Hopefully there is something to vote for, because it makes a material difference for a lot of people that we operate the government. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me!
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
The Lincoln Project salutes Vice President Donald Trump. As Vice President, Trump will finally have the time to do the things that make him happiest. Talk about old movies, playing on his phone, admiring the assets of other men. Meanwhile, President Musk can get down to the business of running the country. We at the Lincoln Project are confident that Donald Trump understands his position. Elon is smarter, wealthier, more charismatic, has a far superior and more successful social media platform and company, is more successful with women, and a better dancer. As President Musk and his assistant J.D. Vance select appointees and write policies, we feel certain Trump will play his part because he's a good boy. Who's a good boy? Trump's a good boy.
In the dark, don't know what it's road is leading. What's the heart? And I saw history repeating. What's my heart? There's nothing that I wouldn't
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. So, I hope you liked the interview because I certainly did. AOC really brought up a lot of interesting things to say about, well, a lot more than just about what the vote that went down last night. But, you know, she kind of brought a little explanation to why Trump wanted to raise the debt ceiling, which, you know, up to that point, I didn't really know why, and I was getting the same kind of reasoning from the other Democrats weren't really answering that question either, but maybe they knew but wouldn't say. But she said that because those Trump tax cuts are going to expire next year, okay, in order to continue them, they have to raise the debt ceiling, which means continuing those tax cuts is going to explode the deficit. Now, if you remember, when Trump was president for that first term, okay, he increased the national deficit by 25%. He put $8 trillion into the fucking deficit. That's 25% of the national debt. Okay, that's the biggest increase in a deficit ever. No other president has ever done that. Even Ronald Reagan couldn't beat that. So that's that. 25% of what this country has for deficit, that's on Trump. And if we continue the tax cuts, he'll add more trillions each year onto that overall number, and that's crazy. I feel like, why would any country want to do business with the United States when we constantly devalue the dollar to that degree? Okay, because who pays for those fucking tax cuts on the rich? We do. The rest of the country does, because when they have to put that kind of money or take that, all that money away from the system, okay, because that's what tax cuts are. That means money we're going to have to give, that we won't be taking anymore from the rich. They got to replace it with something, because you've got all these mandatory expenditures that we have to do every year. Plus, we got the military we've got to fund. There's a lot of things that the tax money goes to that keeps the country going. And if we give tax cuts, continue those things, we're going to be short money. That means something has to get cut. And we already know. I think I already discussed that in the previous video, what's on the table. Everything. That's what's on the table. Everything. And it doesn't matter. Okay? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, VA benefits, everything that you can think of that we, as the rest of the country, rely on, because, we can't make ends meet with the fucking wages that are out there, and it's sad that people who do have a job can still apply for food stamps, or SNAP, okay? There shouldn't be any reason for that. Nobody should be able to dip into the government if they have a job, okay? And they wouldn't be able to do that if the wages were higher. You see what I'm saying? I mean, whenever somebody tells me that, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ. It used to be that when a person didn't have a job, that's when they could get, what they used to call food stamps back in my younger days, okay? They call it SNAP now, but they used to be able to get that. And once you got a job, you didn't need it anymore. And now we hear about airline pilots qualifying to get SNAP. Okay? No, you see, that's what happens when you don't keep wages up. When you don't match inflation with the wages, this is what happens. Something goes, it just gets to the point where the expenses are further ahead than the wages are, and people need help in order to buy things, and they have to look to the government to do it. And the reason why that keeps happening is because the wealthy want to keep getting tax cuts all the time. They don't want to keep paying taxes. Every fucking Republican president that we keep putting back in there as president, they keep doing that. They keep cutting the taxes on the rich. And the more they do that, okay, the less money goes into the government to help out the people who are unable to meet basic needs because the wages are low. It's bad enough that corporations can dictate what they pay their workers, okay? I mean, whenever they want to make more money, they cut overhead, right? Expenses. But to turn around and say, oh, we need corporate welfare, we need tax cuts, and then they don't adjust once they get them to increase wages for the people, it's not about that. It's not about trying to help out, the overhead, right? It's about lining the pockets of the rich, keeping the stock value up. So that way the fucking people that are buying stock from these companies are making money. All right? And that's why when they get their tax cuts and they get all these breaks, the corporate welfare, they get all that stuff, that's the reason why the wages never readjusted. Okay? Because they can afford it then, right? If they're getting help, then they can afford to pay their workers more, but they won't do it. They just won't fucking do it. And that's the problem. There isn't enough government, how could I say, there isn't enough government pushback on that. They should say, look, we'll give you those tax cuts, but you got to increase your wages. You want the tax cuts? Fine, we'll do that, but you have to increase your wages. You got to pay your workers more because cost of living is way higher than it was, okay? And, the hell, Smokey, will you sit still? Okay, cost of living is way higher than it was 10 years ago. And these people, they're dipping into the government to get help and assistance, you know, from different programs that we have. That shouldn't be going on if they all have jobs. You should be paying them more so they can meet, you know, the basic needs. So, you want your tax cuts? Okay, we'll give them to you, but you have to agree to increase your wages. You know, and that's what I would do. I would hold them over the fire and say, look, you know, and if you don't like it, forget the tax cuts. You ain't getting them. Okay? But, you know, the government doesn't have to kneel before corporate America. They should be on the same level of playing field, right? You know what I'm saying? So you want something from us, we'll give you something, but, you know, you got to give as well as take. You know, that's the way it should be with the business and the government world. It should be a give and take. It shouldn't always be give all the fucking time to the rich. They're going to have to give back. Okay, because if they're doing business in this country, they are part of the economic flow. And they're as much responsible to maintain that fucking economic flow as the government is. So together they have to work in order to make this capitalist system function in a more healthy fashion. Right now, it's all been a one-way street, and that's got to stop. That has to fucking stop. And the fact that they're still not happy when they get all these tax breaks and they get all this corporate welfare shows the level of greed that they have. That has to change too. You know, those windfall taxes, we need to have that, okay? We need to have that too. When these people sit there and they brag about, like, said that healthcare company, bragging about $22 billion this year alone in profits. Well, if you get big windfall profits like that, you need to pay a tax on that, okay? I'm sorry, but but bragging about that is just pure profit, and that goes to the upper echelons in your company. That's just fucking legalized robbery. It's still unethical, even though it might not be unlawful, but okay, it's still unethical, and that's not right because you're hurting, you're benefiting yourself, but you're hurting everybody else around you. Okay, and who the hell are you to do shit like that? So, but yeah, that's what they'd have to do in order to continue these tax cuts for the wealthy. They would have to raise the debt ceiling in order to do that because, like she said, it would balloon the deficit in a massive scale. Higher, much higher than it is now, probably double it. And so I don't know how the Democrats, you know, what they're going to do. I really don't, because they may have bowed, the Republicans may have given in to this time, but you know what's going to happen. Mike Johnson's going to be ousted. He's going to be kicked right out of the fucking speakership. They'll put somebody in there who is a ring kisser and loyal to the Musk-Trump presidency. Okay? They're going to put somebody in there like that, and it's going to be a tougher battle for Democrats and the Republicans that don't agree with what's going on. It's going to be an uphill battle for them, and they just might shut the government down then. Okay, and I could see that that's going to probably be a fact here in the next fight over the you know, the budget and all that. I could see that it's going to be something that will probably eventually happen. They may get away with this time because, you know, it seemed like, you know, the Republicans, you know, were on the losing side because they reneged on an agreement they already made, and plus they, you know, at the last minute, Trump says, oh, well, we want the debt ceiling raised, you know, so it was like, you know, it was uncoordinated, and Republicans, they didn't give the Republicans really a chance to fucking discuss it, you know. They just snuck all this shit into the bill at the 11th hour, and that's why it fell apart. And so the timing was off as far as the Republicans are concerned. They should have been bitching about this all year, basically, while the campaign was going on. But I don't think anybody wanted to talk about it because they knew that that might hurt them in the election if Trump was, you know, going to have to talk anything at all about extending those tax cuts that he passed when he was president the first time. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the reason why they lost this time. But now, you know, they're gonna have some time given to be able to cajole their Republican members and get them to fall in line. So that way, when they try this again here in a few weeks, they'll have more of a coalition here. And that means the Democrats are going to have to stand united again to oppose anything that's got, you know, debt ceiling being raised or the tax cuts being extended. I mean, I think that's really where they need to go, is to say these cuts must end, okay? And if the people getting these cuts want them to continue, they got to give something to the government, okay? They got to do something. These corporate fat cats need to start raising their wages to their workers, okay? That's what they're going to have to do. And another point that AOC brought up was something that I've been kind of harping on here for a few weeks, I guess, is that Democrats, I mean, they noticed that Trump had a big online presence, okay, during the campaign this year. And for everything that was going on, that was being said, he would immediately go online and he'd tweet. He'd tweet about it. He'd say something. Remember the Taylor Swift thing as an example. It was, you know, I used to hate her now, and you know, he would have an online presence to, you know, retaliate right offhand. And the right-wing MAGA nuts liked that, okay? That they liked hearing that, okay? They liked feeling that they were somehow connected to him through the online apparatus, okay? That's what they liked about that, was, you know, they felt connected to him that way. That's something the Democrats during the campaign, they didn't really keep that, you know, that door open. AOC did that, okay? She's got an online presence. And so she's like constantly in connection with her base. Which explains why people voted for her and in the same breath voted for Trump. Those are the two people that have this online presence. And Democrats would be dumb not to fucking look at that and learn from it. But like she said, there's too many establishment politicians in there. And what she means by that is the old fucks. Okay? The Nancy Pelosi's, you know, people like that. You know, there's too many of the old guard still in there with this entitlement concept in their head that, oh, they have to bow to me. And like she said, they don't see her as a positive thing. They don't see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as a positive influence. They look at her as lowbrow, as she said. They look at her as an attention seeker, as she said. Okay? So in other words, people that get online and talk to the base and stuff like that, they're rebel rousers. Okay, that's what they are. They, you know, people look at that and say, oh, it's because they're still thinking 20, 30 years ago. That's how it started 20, 30 years ago, was a bunch of lowbrow people getting online and yakking their heads off. But now it's mainstream. And these old people, these old politicians haven't caught up to that reality yet, okay? They're still behind the times. Like she says, it was always Republicans that always set the new level of how to get information out. The Democrats are always behind. They're the ones that started the radio, the Rush Limbaugh bullshit, okay? They were the ones that started the Fox News shit before, you know, cable, before, you know, the Democrats started their own thing. They are always leading the way on how to connect with the base, how to gain a base. And Democrats are always playing catch up. Okay, and this is what it is here. This is why one of the reasons why that Kamala Harris, you know, didn't win this thing. She didn't lose by a big margin, okay? But a lot of people that didn't vote for her were people, I think, that had an issue about the Gaza mess in Israel, okay? And instead of voting for Trump, which they knew wasn't going to be in their interest, they just didn't vote. They stayed home, okay? They didn't like either one of them. So for that, they stayed home. And I think that's the reason why a lot of Democrats didn't vote, okay? These were the people who wanted to see the Democrats take a stronger stand on things. And the fact that the only time they'd ever hear anything said about it was at a rally or at the DNC convention. Okay, but where was the online discussion about it with the Democrat leadership? Where was that? It wasn't there. It just wasn't there. These people were not talking to their base. Okay, they had the means to be able to do that. It just wouldn't do it. Okay, and so they don't have the means to persuade their base to their point of view if they're not talking to them. Instead of giving them speeches, you know, you need to do like what AOC does. She gets online, she tells people what she's doing today. Okay, she tells people, you know, what the issues of today are pending in the House and what she's going to do, what she's going to vote. She keeps everybody in tune to how the government works, you know, how it's working. You know, I watch her videos, okay? She tells you every damn detail of what's going on, okay? And that's what people like to hear. They like to hear that things are working. The government's not asleep at the wheel, okay? That things are moving around. Okay, and through her, they find out, oh, okay, today they're going to be discussing this, or tomorrow they're going to be voting on that. People want to know, okay? That's a step beyond what you get on the television and cable news, okay? Cable news is only going to report things after they happen. She's sitting there telling people things that are going to happen, okay? That's, people like to get that kind of knowledge ahead of time to see what's happening. And you see, that's what MAGA has been doing all this time with the likes of, you know, Dingbat, dear Trump, and other people that follow him, is they reach out to the base. They tell them what Trump is going to do, you know, what the Democrats are going to do. Okay, it engages them to keep them in the loop. They feel like they're part of the fucking, the works of it, you know, of things. And Democrats are going to have to follow AOC. They may not agree or like what she does, okay? And I don't see the problem, but hey, you know, that's just me. They may not like the way she handles her base, but it works. And if the other Democrats just want to just shove that aside and keep doing business as usual, they're going to be looking at more losses, more seats taken away from them, I think, because hey, the younger generation is old enough to vote here, and guess what? It's all the internet with them. They're engaged on. They got that in their hands all the time. They are connected to the fucking internet. Jesus Christ! And that's the reality that Democrats leadership is going to have to fucking kneel before, because hey, times are changing, like they say, and if you don't change with them, you're falling behind, and you're no longer relevant. And that's the way I see Nancy Pelosi and people like her, as they are no longer relevant. These people are from a different era. They think in a different time. The things that they did in the past did not work for the most part. Okay? Like, I'll take, for instance, that abortion issue, Roe v. Wade. They should have codified that years ago, made that into law. They didn't do that. They sat on it. They let that issue float down the river till it went off the fall. Okay? They should have codified that. That would have prevented that from ever becoming an issue at this point in the game. Okay? There's no excuse for that. The Democrats failed us on that. Okay? So the way they do things is no longer relevant. It doesn't apply. It's like using Windows 95 in today's world. Okay? It just doesn't work. So we as Democrats have got to say enough of the Pelosi's, enough of these old guard people. They're aged. They've aged out of this world. Okay, it's time to retire. It's time to call it a day. You did what you could. Okay, it's up to the younger people to pick up the baton and continue the race. Okay, they got to retire. And I think, you know, the people and the voters and the leadership needs to be marginalizing them as they go forward from here, okay? Because, like I said, they may be respected because of things they did in the past. Okay, fine. You can retire and have a legacy. That's the most you're ever going to get out of life. You can't stay there. You can't fucking stay there, you know, and keep using old ideas to fix new problems. It never works, okay? It just never works. There's young people out there like AOC who have the energy and the ideas and the know-how to be able to get things done, and you're pushing them aside because you feel entitled to the position that they want to sit in to get things done. And you got to be a person who's willing and has the courage to step aside and say, okay, this is your seat now. You know, just like what Biden did when he gave up his chance for a second term as president. You're gonna have to show that kind of fucking resilience. You're gonna have to show that kind of dignity. You're gonna have to show that kind of leadership, that it's not about you, okay? It's about the country, okay? And Pelosi, she isn't like Biden in that regard. She thinks it's about her. She thinks it's about her because she won't step aside for somebody like AOC. Instead, she holds a grudge over her because she sees her as a attention seeker, lowbrow, okay, when she's totally got it wrong. AOC is the future. This is the way things will be done in the future to connect to people. And that's just it. That's just the way it is, whether you accept it or not, okay? Because sooner or later, other younger politicians are going to make that same decision and that same conclusion, and they're going to be doing it. So what are you going to do? You're going to marginalize your whole goddamn party over that? No, I'm sorry, but it's time for these people to stand aside. What are you doing in there? You digging for oil again? All right. So and and you know, another issue that AOC brought up was about picking your fights. You can't go after every single issue, and Democrats have a need to address every single point that MAGA brings up all the time. Yeah, it irritates us to no end, these ideas that they come up with. But at the same time, if you go after every single issue that they talk about, all right, you can't really focus on an issue that you can win, because you're diverting all your energy and everything into multiple issues. Okay, and that's just like it's like a potluck, gamble, or something. Why do that? Go hit the points that you know you can win. That's how you build a coalition. Because when they see that every time the Democrats stand up to address something, they win on this. Okay, it's not every time the Democrats stand up and fight for something and don't win. Okay, people, like I said, America loves winners. They always love winners. Okay, so if you come out of the gate with this idea that you're going to hit everything at all at once, no, you're not going to win, and you're going to lose your base, because they're going to say these people don't know what they're doing. They lose every fucking fight. But if you come out of the gate and you choose the fights that you know you can win, the fights that are worth fighting, that are big wins, people will remember that. That's the way they used to do things in way back. Like when FDR and all them, okay, they picked their battles. They picked their battles at the right time. These people understood how to do politics in those days, okay? They knew the art of compromise. They knew how to give and get at the same time. Yeah, they may not have always agreed on everything, but they won on the points that mattered, the things that helped the country. But today, the Democrats are more scattered about things. Okay, they try to win on every issue, and they just can't. You just can't fucking do that. Okay, they have to be. If they can't be united on everything, then try to unite them on one thing. Okay, and then maybe you can see some victories here. And I think that's a very good point that she made there on that. It's strategic, and you get more victories. Yeah, you're gonna suffer some losses, but you fight the ones that you know you can win. That makes the difference. That's what pisses off the other side, is when you win on something that that they don't like. But at the same time, it also opens the door to making compromises so that you can win on issues with bipartisan support by saying, okay, we'll do this for you if you let us have this or something. And the government will work a lot better that way than to say it's either this or nothing at all. okay, which is the way MAGA's been doing stuff, okay, and way, you know, in a lot of way the way Democrats have been doing stuff. I keep saying that if you want to unify the country again, because it's very heavily split, if you want to bring the country together again, you have to come to the center right now, okay? I know people don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. And we've gotten to the guardrails of both sides of politics, and look what it's done. So what's the answer? It's to do exactly the thing you don't want to do. That's to come to the middle. Both sides are going to have to put aside their extreme ideas, come to the center, and do things the way it used to be done in this country, where you have debates, you have give and take, you have compromise, you have negotiation. Okay, and another thing that helps in that is to keep big business the fuck out of the debate. Okay, it would be MAGA would not like it, or the Republicans would not like it, if a whole bunch of poor people showed up, you know, in the debate and were pressuring the. No, you close the fucking doors. You know, lobbyists, you stay the hell out. We're doing this. This is government work. You stay the hell out there. You just sit there with your thumb up your ass. Okay. This is what we do. This is our time, and so that's why I say, you know you have to keep the influences out and let people work things out on their own. Okay, let the politicians work this stuff. Stop buying them off. Stop tainting the waters, as it were, with your fucking greed. Stop that, because it's not helping anything. It's actually dividing the country more, because when one side gets more than the other side, guess what happens? You're gonna have a fight. You got class war going on. So, yeah, she brought up a lot of good points, a lot of good areas to talk about in that interview, and that's why I wanted others to see it. And the reason why I like AOC is because of that. She's more forward-thinking than a lot of the Democrats are, and it's too bad in a way that, you know, she didn't have more of a presence, I think, during the election. You know, and instead of Kamala pairing up with Liz Cheney, okay, which, you know, a lot of people don't really understand what the point was behind that. I mean, she could have paired up with any other Republican that was turning their back on the MAGA movement, and, you know, but Liz Cheney, okay, I mean, her name is forever going to be dragged through the mud because of her father, but, you know, I don't see how that was a positive. I think a lot of Democrats cringed at her pairing up with Liz Cheney. Okay, I just think that's, you know, it wasn't a wise thing. She was trying to show a coalition here that included Republicans, but it just was the wrong person to pick, I think. But I think, you know, if she had like AOC, you know, kind of making speeches for her more than she did, then, you know. And saying stuff that, you know, because, you know, Tim Walz was like AOC in a way. I mean, he was more, you know, with the people. I mean, he seemed like a guy that was more in connection with people, okay? And I think a lot of people liked him that way. I heard some people say that the ticket should have been reversed. You know, it should have been Tim Walz running for president and Kamala as the vice president, you know, but I don't know if that, you know, if you could put I don't know. Maybe there's a way you can, I don't know. But the thing is that, you know, a lot of people thought that the ticket would have looked better the other way around, but I don't know. Because they were both positive influences. They both brought some energy to the election that wasn't there, you know, so, but including AOC in that would have been a good thing too, because like I said, she's got that online presence, and people can send her messages, they can talk to her in chat rooms and stuff like that. She stays in touch with the people, you know, that vote for her, and that's what people want today, because we got the internet. People like connecting online for all kinds of things. Okay, so why not with the politician of your choice? You know, why not? You know? All right, so that's it for today. I hope everybody has a great rest of the weekend. So subscribe, comment, and share, and keep your ears open for health-related issues. And please be careful out there driving and, when you're shopping. And today is the first day of winter, I guess. So that means this will be like the shortest day of the year because of the sunlight hours for people up here. But after today, the days will start to go back to getting longer now instead. So, so I'm like, oh, hooray for that. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.